Hi folks, welcome to today's color process video. Right, today's comic was one that, as I mentioned in the process post, started off, the initial idea, that is, it started off as something that was just going to be a simple 4-panel comic strip, and of course it ballooned into what you see before you today. And it's one of those cases where part of me was glad that happened, and then the other part of me that realized this thing would have to be colored. Uh, it made that part of me go, oh no, what have you done? Um, However, in the end, I am glad I did it because this has ended up being one of my favorite comics that I've done in a while, in terms of both the concept and the execution. Um, Now, color wise, I thought this was going to take a lot longer uh, than it did, especially the fact that I went with a similar panel layout to that comic I did. Um, was it this week? Was it last week? Um, yeah, I don't quite know where I am at the moment, or when I am rather, because as I'm talking now, this is like close to a month before the comic has gone up. So you can kind of get easy to lose track of things. However, there was a comic I did before this that had a very similar kind of layout, and I ended up working on that, coloring it, that is, for just over 4 hours. And I was worried that it was going to be the same with this one, that I'd be spending upwards of 4 hours, maybe more, getting it done. However, thankfully, the time it took me to do it, while it was still lengthy at just over 2.5 hours, it yeah, it didn't take near as quite near. It didn't take near as long as I thought it would. Now, one thing that helps there is the fact that I just made various little choices that would help speed things up. For instance, if you look at the first panel, specifically the background, at first I was going to color everything individually. You know, like have the table have one color, have the curtains be kind of a red, have the carpet be a similar kind of red, and so on and so forth. However, I felt, for time reasons and also partly for aesthetic reasons as well, I decided I would stick with kind of a monochrome kind of look, where I just used various different shades of blue. And while I wanted originally the that office to look very opulent and lots of kind of golds and reds and whatnot to get across the gulf in wealth between the worker and the Scrooge McDuck character, I felt in the end that just the mere fact that the character is standing in this huge office with their hat held in their hand, it gets across the wealth differentiate words words are gone, words are just gone, the wealth gap between the two characters. And really, once I had that sorted out, that background, everything else kind of fell into place from there. You may notice looking at the final comic that there's a very definite um, direction to the colors here, where I reused those same blues in the third panel and the fifth panel, which creates almost kind of like a triangle. And then in the second panel and the sixth panel, I use kind of a green. And the other panels, I either leave them blank or have like a red in the background as well. So you've got this kind of almost checkerboard thing going on. where there's like a nice contrast between the colors, but there are also like recurring colors throughout. So it kind of ties everything together nicely, I find, or at least I hope it does. And yeah, it was just one of those cases where once I figured that out, everything else kind of fell into place from there. Um, Other little tricks I use just to reduce the amount of time I would spend on coloring it was I didn't do quite so much of the nicely kind of rendered look to everything. Like if you look at the first panel, that background, typically I would have gone for a far more rendered look to that. However, I just rendered everything in flats just for the purposes of speed. And I did that for most of the other panels as well, where I kept things fairly flat and maybe would just touch things up a bit with like a textured kind of paintbrush tool. Like if you look at the sixth panel where Scrooge McDuck is lunging at the guy or jumping at him, whatever. Yeah, there I kept that like I kept that flat, but then I just like added in I did like a handmade gradient rather than using a digital gradient because I just felt it would look nicer and it would kind of help the eye draw in on Scrooge in that panel. Um, One panel I did have some difficulty with at first was the one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, the eighth panel, the panel where the fork is stabbing the pea. Um, it didn't look all that. It didn't look very good with color added in the background. Um, I felt it worked really well in just its plain line work form, but when there were colors added, it just I don't know. There was something about it. It just didn't sit right with me. So all I did was I simply just got the eraser tool, sized it up, and just erased around the P, using the P as the center and just getting rid of the color around that. So I'm hoping that when readers look at the comic, that the effect that I have in the line work, it still comes across in the color as well, where the Scrooge is about to like peck the guy's eye, and then we see the fork going into the P. I was kind of worried that with the addition of color, some of the flow of that like segue doesn't work quite as well. But I'm hoping what I've done has kind of sorted that out. So yeah, I think I'll leave it at that. So thank you very much for watching, and I will talk to you at the next video. Take care.